Hi, everyone. This is Sami Karakand. I will be your host today, and I will be starting very shortly. We expect a few people for today's webinar. Thank you for bearing with us. Hi, everyone. This is Sami Karakand. I will be your host for this webinar. And I will be presenting a live demo of Docugen using real examples. And during that time, you are more than welcome to ask questions. I think there is a Q&A panel in Zoom webinars where you can drop your questions. I will be stopping a couple of times during the webinar to check the questions and answer them, hopefully to your satisfaction. So what I'm going to cover in today's webinar is simple. I'm going to go into generating documents using Dockagen and Monday.com. I'm going to discuss how settings work, how you can use templates and placeholders to generate documents the way you want them to look like, how you can use integrations within Dockagen that allow you to do certain things in a more efficient way. And then at the end, I will discuss how you can get more help and troubleshooting advice from our website and from our chat support. So without further ado, I'm going to go to my Monday here, my Monday account. And the best way to start with Docugen is probably to create a board from the templates that we provide as part of the package. So I'm assuming here that you've installed Dockagen from the Monday.com marketplace. And once you've installed it, if you create a board from a template, and go to see more templates. In the search box, you can just type Docugen and click use on the Docugen set. And that's going to load, I think, around 5 or 6 pre-designed boards for Docugen use. I'm going to be using this one here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 boards that are created as part of the of those board templates. And I'm going to be using this recruiting board. It's a good example for document generation. Assume you're running a recruitment department and you need to send out offer letters to successful candidates. So this is a board here, very simple. It has the details of the candidates, what offer the date is going to be made on, what position it's for, starting date, and any other information you might need in there. I'm going to also use a template that's ready-made, that's already built for you. If you go to our support website, which is support.dockagen.io, and if you can just search for template gallery, that's the name of the page, you would see that page has a bunch of templates that you can use with the board templates that I've just installed. I'm going to use the very first one, the candidate offer letter template. It's a Word document, and you can preview it here before downloading it. And you will notice that it contains a bunch of what we call placeholders or tags that tell Docugen where to plug in information from your board. I'm going to download this Word document to my computer, and I'll switch back to my Monday.com board here for recruiting. I obviously need to add a Docugen view. So anytime you need to start generating documents, you need to add a Docugen view to your board. So I will go to the Views Center, and I'll search for Docugen here. And like any other view in Monday, you can give it a name. So I'm going to call this one Offer Letters. And as you can see, Docugen has loaded. It's a very simple interface. So what we have here is basically 4 tabs. So the first tab is the Documents tab. It will show you a listing of all the documents that have been generated for that particular Monday board. If I go to settings, we will go into that in a bit more detail later in this webinar. You can set different options for document generation. You have a statistics tab, which allows you to see how much consumption you're using in terms of Docugen document generation. And then you have the subscription tab, which allows you to see what subscription tier you're on and to upgrade if you need to. Now, if I go to the settings tab, I will see that, first of all, there is multiple delivery options for the documents that are generated by Docugen. By default, you will get the documents that are generated sent to you by email. You can also select that board subscribers, anybody who is added on the board, receives a copy of that document by email as well. But also you can specify a file column where the document that's generated gets attached automatically. Now, this is now not possible to select at this moment because there is no file column on the board. So let me go to the board here. Let me scroll all the way to the right, and let's add a file column. And I'll just keep it files. I won't rename it. I can rename it, but I'll leave it as it is. And let me switch back to my Docugen view. Now that I'm back on my Docugen view, if I go to settings, you will see that this option for attaching the file to a file column is selectable. You can actually choose it. If you have more than one file column, you can select which one you want to attach the documents to, but we only have one, so that's the only option we got. I'm going to disable the option to send an email. I'll keep it just for the file column. And I can also tell Docugen to attach the document to the conversation feed. Let's do that. Let's see how that gets produced. Now, probably the most important part of the settings is the the template bit. The template is what tells Docugen how the generated document should look like. Otherwise, it will just generate a table in a blank document. Now, I'll click select template, and I'll just select the one I've downloaded from our help center, which is the offer letter, the candidate offer letter. Here it is, it's a Word document, it's attached. I can also select specific document types. I will select the PDF format. You have to select at least one type. So once I've selected PDF, I can uncheck the Word document file type. I'm going to leave everything else as default, and I will click generate document. And you can see here on the documents tab, you see what documents are being generated or have been generated. By default, the documents that are generated get named the same as the view, the Docugen view, which we called offer letters. I'll show you later how you can name those views differently if you so wish. Now, this might take a few seconds. If I switch back to my main table and I scroll to the right, within a few moments, I should be able to see a document. You see here, it's a PDF document exactly as I specified in the settings. And if I click on it, Monday.com will allow me to see a preview. So let's see how that looks like. Great, it looks fantastic. So this document here is exactly the same way that templates looked like, except that those placeholders that I showed you earlier on the template have been replaced by actual values coming in from your board. So now that offer letter looks like a proper offer letter that you can send out to your candidates, as you can see here. You will notice that the document has also been attached to the conversation feed. So if I go to the conversation feed, that same document is available here as well as a PDF. And that's because I chose both methods of delivery. I can just specify delivery by email or as a file column or as a conversation feed or a combination of those. When you generate documents and request them to be delivered in multiple ways, they still count as one document in terms of consumption. So it doesn't matter how many places it gets attached to, it just counts as one. So that's how we've generated the document using a template, but we want to do something a little bit more interesting. We want to be able to generate documents for specifically a given row. For example, Jim Smith offer letter, or a Bob Pavlak offer letter, or a Natasha Doe offer letter. And the way we do that is by using a button column. So in Monday.com, you can add a button column. I've added one here earlier. I've called it the offer letter column. And it's part of your templates that you get as part of Docugen as well. Now, these buttons, they don't do nothing when you install the board initially. They're just there without any setup that tells them what to do. What we're going to do is we're going to create an integration from the integrations tab here in Monday on that same board. And I will look for Dockagen Integrations. Here's Dockagen. And Dockagen offers you three types of integrations. The first type is date-driven. So you can tell Dockagen on a given date, that date could be drawn from a date column, but it tells Dockagen on that date, please generate a document. Another option is to generate documents based on a status tab changing to some value. So in the case of a candidate board, we could have a status tab that says, whether it's a successful candidate or not. And if the status is successful, Docugen can automatically generate a document. And lastly, we have an integration that triggers based on a button. So you can manually click a button and have Docugen generate a document. And this is what we are going to use for this example. So I will click on that button integration here. And it takes a few seconds for Monday to load the integration screen where you can specify the details. As a reminder, you can drop questions at any time in the Q&A panel. I'll be happy to answer that. Right, so this is the button integration. There's two parameters you need to specify, that's all. The first parameter is which button column should be triggering the document generation. I will use the button column that's called offer letter. We've seen it on the board. And I need to specify which Docugen view contains the settings for the document generation. So basically, which view contains the template, contains whether it should be the document, whether the document should be generated as a Word document or as a PDF document, and all these options that you've specified. So in this case, I'm going to click on that option, and I'm going to say offer letters, and you have to type in the name of that view exactly the same way you've named it. So if you remember at the beginning of the webinar, I created a Docugen view and I called it offer letters. So I'm going to type it in exactly the way it's spelled in the view. In a later release of Docugen, we will allow you to select from a drop-down instead of typing it in. But for now, you will need to be able to type it in exactly the same way you've named it. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to click Add to Board. And here I have this integration. It should run fine. So I'm going to close. And to test it, let me just bring in the files column a little bit to the left, closer to the button, so that we can see it change more easily. I'm going to go to Bob Pavlak's row here, and I'm going to click the button. And again, it takes a few moments for the document to be generated, so don't rush into clicking it again. You can just wait a little bit. And it should appear both in the file column and in the conversation feed, since that is the way we specified it. So it doesn't necessarily happen simultaneously. I see now there is a document in the file column, and then a few seconds later, a document in the conversation feed. Let's check this document again. Let's make sure that it's Bob's offer letter and not someone else's. And here it is. Indeed, it takes Bob's name and his email address and fills in all the details from his particular row. Let's try that again on the third row, which is Natasha Doe. So if I click on the button, again, a few moments, I should be getting the document, and it should be clearly intended for Natasha Doe. Let's check that together. And indeed, it's a document that's specifically addressed to Natasha Doe. So just to recap, the way we've done it is very simple. We've added the Docugen view. We've called it offer letters. We went to the settings tab and we specified the template that we want Docugen to use and to fill with actual data. That template, you could use one of our existing templates from the document template gallery on our website, and modify it, obviously, or you can come up with your own. And I'll show you in a bit how you can come up with your own template from scratch using our placeholders. And then I went to the Monday board, and I've added an integration that allows us to generate a document when a button is clicked. And that's as simple as that. So going forward, anytime you click that button, it will create a file. I'm going to ask my colleague Neda, who is on the call, to let me know if there are questions so far that have been raised. All right, so there are no questions. Fantastic. So we're going to move on. Don't forget, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A panel. So I'm going to show you now how we can do a few more things with Docugen. Another thing that you can do is you can generate multiple types of documents from the same board. So this recruiting board, we saw how we can generate an offer letter document from the data on the board. But let's say we have the requirement to also generate regret letters that inform unsuccessful candidates that they have not been selected. So instead of going back to that Docugen view and changing the template, changing the settings, and starting all over again to generate documents, instead of that, we can add a view, a Docugen view, And this one, we will call it regrets. And just like the previous view, you can upload any template you want. In this case, it will be specifically for sending regrets to candidates who are not successful. And you can have it also delivered through a file column. It might be a different file column than the one on the offer letter view. It might be different file formats. It's entirely up to you how you deliver those things. And in fact, you can go to your Monday board and add another column. In this case, it should be a column for sending regrets. So let me just do that now. I'm going to click new column. It's going to be a button column, and I will call it regrets in this case. And then I can generate an automation using Docugen to generate a regret letter when that particular button is clicked. And I will do it the same way we've done it with the candidate offer letters by specifying which button, and this will appear in a second. In this case, we will have two options because we have two button columns. We will select the regret one. And also the view that has the settings for generating documents will be specifically the regrets view. So once this appears, we'll be able to select the regrets column. There you go. Regrets. And I believe the view was called regrets as well. And since that is done, I can add it to the board. And now we have two integrations. One will generate offer letters, another one will generate regrets. You might consider having, instead of two different columns or two different buttons, having one single status column, and then generating documents using a status integration, which Docugen allows you to do based on any status value you desire. Another thing you can do is you can have your documents that are generated named in any given way. So for example, let me go to the offer letters board. And if I go to the Documents tab, you will notice that all of the offer letters that have been generated are called offer letters. And obviously, this is not very helpful because I can't tell anymore which letter is for whom. You can dynamically specify those document names by going to the Settings tab and heading directly to the default document name here. When it's completely blank, like it is now, the documents that are generated get the same name as the Docugen view that generated them. However, you're at liberty to rename those documents in any way you want. So for example, I will call them offer letter 4, and then I would like to have that last part of the document name to be the actual candidate name. Now, the candidate name happens to be on the very first column in my board, and I know the placeholder for that one. I know it very well. And I'll show you what reference I have for that in case I forget it. So in this case, I'll use the placeholder column, first row, item. And then what this means is it tells Docugen that whenever you see this placeholder, use the wording in the very first column on the board. So in this case, I should be getting offer letters that are called offer letter for Bob, offer letter for Joe, offer letter for Natasha. Let us see whether this works or not. So initially, those files that were generated, they're just called offer letters. Let me create another one for Jim here. But obviously this time, because I changed the settings on the Docugen view by renaming the file name, document name, it should appear with the new proper naming. So once the document appears on the board, we're going to hover over it and check out what the name looks like. All right, while it's generating, I'm going to click Bob Pavelak's row as well. And for some reason, it doesn't seem to be generating. Let me just switch back and forth. There you go. It did generate it. It took a bit of time, but I'm going to go back to the board. The first one is generated, and here's the second one. So in this case, as you can see, the name of the document is offer letter for Jim Smith. The second one is offer letter for Bob Pavlak. And again, the way we did that is by using what we call placeholders in the name of the document. So if I go to the settings, as you can see here, because we named it offer letter 4 and then that placeholder. So the question is, how do we get a list of all available placeholders for Docugen? And again, the best way to find that is by going to our help site, which is support.dockagen.io, and search for the placeholders in the search bar. And it's the first result here. It's template placeholders. If I open it, you will see a listing of the placeholders. Let me scroll down to that listing. And there's a whole bunch of them that you can use. They're very simple. There is a one that is called table start, which basically tells Docugen to insert the table of rows that you have in your Monday board in whatever location has that placeholder. You can use multiple user attributes. So the user is the person who is actually clicking the button or generating the document. And if you want to include that user's email or phone or name somewhere in the document, that is a placeholder that you will need to use. For example, let me show you the candidate offer letter template that we've used several times to generate offer letters. If I scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that the signature block is actually placeholders for the user's name, email, and phone. And because I'm using those placeholders, if I take a look again at the documents that were generated, you'll see that those placeholders were successfully replaced by the user's name, email, and phone number. Let's go back to the placeholders. You will see there is also a number of account-based placeholders. This is your monday.com account, the name of the account, the ID of the account, the URL. And there's also placeholders that derive information from the board itself, whether it's the name or the ID or others. You can even include the entire description of the board, which is that bit at the top here, right below the name of the board. This is the entire place that has a description. You can include that text block anywhere you want in the document if you need it. You will notice also some very special placeholders which allow you to bring in the value from a specific column. So in this case, the item column is the very first column on your board. Or if you want to have a specific column filled in, you can use that placeholder, which is column underscore first row colon column label. And I'll show you how this works. So if we go to the template here, you will notice that there's on the first line, I'm writing to confirm my offer of a position at account name. So that's the name of obviously the company that's extending the offer, which is the monday.com account name. And then it mentions the position. So as a column of first row position, the position column from the board is what gets filled in here. So if I go to the board, you will see that there is a column for the position. So anytime you specify a placeholder like this one here that says column first row colon, and then you put in the exact name of the column, then you will have that value plugged in here. Just like this one as well, column first row manager. So if I go back to my board here, you'll see the manager column is a person column. Now these ones are blank, so I wonder what kind of value we got in when we generated the document. See, the name is missing. reporting to is missing. So in that case, if I fill in the name of the manager, let's say myself here, and I generate the document once more, once it's generated, I'll open it, and you will see that the last word on the first paragraph of the letter should include my name as the manager of that person who's been extended the offer. And here it is indeed, reporting to Sami Karakand, which is the name of the person specified in the person column. I believe we have a question or two. Neda, if you can please read out the question to me, I would appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. What is the best way to display each sub-item as in a table? The first question.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that. So sub-items have limited support at the time by Dockagen. If I show you how that works, you will be able to see that we only support the very first column in the sub-items. And we're working on making that a little bit more versatile. So I'm having here a sub-items column for the sake of our example. I'm going to call this sub-item 1 and then sub-item 2. And in fact, I'm going to create a new board, but I'll make it a blank board without any template. So that's going to be quicker. I'll call it sub-items. So that board has no template or nothing. I just added it without any specific settings, and it's going berserk. Let me just navigate out and back in. Excellent. So now I'm going to generate a document. In fact, let me attach it to the conversation feed. And let me make it a PDF that's going to be easier to read as well. So you will see that the sub-items are supported in a very limited way, unfortunately, for the time being. They will only support the very first column in the sub-items, and that will include the sub-items as a comma delimited string. So if you look here, it's just going to appear as a column, and it's going to say sub-item 1, comma sub-item 2, and it's going to enumerate all of them that are in the sub-items. It will not be generating a table as you would expect, but we're working on that, and hopefully we can release an update in Q2 that will allow you to generate sub-items as documents, as a table in a document. If I may ask the person who asked that question to type in the reason they're looking to generate documents with sub-items in them, basically what use case you are looking to achieve. Is it what type of documents? Anything that can give us a little bit of hint as to how you intend to use that. Nida, back to you if there are other questions.
Yeah, there is. Is it a way to display more feedback to the user that the document is generating? Example, a status that updates when the document is generating and have been generated, so the user doesn't spam the button.
That's actually a very, very good question. And it's something we're working on, because I'll show you currently, obviously if you're generating a document from within the Dockagen view, we have quite a bit of control on what happens here. So if you click generate document, we can display this nice notification that the document is being generated, and that typically would lead to you, being comfortable that you can wait a little bit for it. However, on the main board, we don't have that leeway. So we can't control the messaging on the main board. So if I click the offer letter here, I have no idea no way of knowing whether the document is being generated or not, except waiting until a document is added. So I do take your idea here at heart, and I think it's a great idea to allow, as part of the integration, an update to a status column. So thank you for that, and I can tell you we're going to discuss it with the with the product team on our next call. Thank you. Neda, are there any other questions?
No.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. So that's for generating documents using the different settings in Dockagen. So we've discussed generating documents, different settings you can use.
I'm sorry to disturb,
yeah,
but they are using subitems to show times. Example, breakfast at 9, lunch 1 p.m. and dinner at 6 p.m.
Okay, perfect. I think we're going to reach out to to the person who raised that after the webinar. I'm just going to ask a couple more questions, and maybe that can help us in our development work. Thank you for that. So I hope that was a good introduction to Dockagen. I think one big advantage that we're trying to provide is the in-app chat widget. And so you'll notice that in Dockagen, you have this little Zendesk chat widget that you can use at any time during Eastern time, New York time. So we have 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. coverage during Eastern time, and you can drop a word to any of our team and they will do their best to help you out. And also by email. So if they're not live, like at this moment here, you can just drop a word and they will come back to you very, very quickly. So that's one way of getting help. Another way is to go to our support website, support.dockagen.io. And there's plenty of documentation here. And you can also comment on any articles that you read. You can add a comment, you can vote for or against it. And we do read those comments and votes, and we try to address them as fast as we possibly can. We're building Dockagen on fast track. We're quickly trying to turn it into a very useful and powerful tool without cluttering it. And we do appreciate all kinds of feedback that we can get from users. And we do appreciate you joining us for our webinar. I think we have some more time for questions. If there are any, I'll be happy to address that. All right, Neda, are there any more questions?
No.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you very, very much for attending that webinar, and I hope it was useful. You can reach out to me as well directly. My email address is right there, sammy@cloudconceptgroup.com. You can also reach me using support@dockagen.io. Our chat team will receive that and they will let me know. Just make sure it's addressed to me. I will be more than happy to assist you in any way I can. All right, thank you very much, everyone, and see you soon.
Thank you.